Hey everybody, we are back today with Brandy at Brandygirl Tarot and Astrology. And we are so this is a case that is a big deal in Austin and really all over Texas at this point. Like, I didn't realize that it was up until a few years ago. I didn't realize how well known it was all over Texas, which probably sounds kind of stupid. I am talking about the yogurt shop murders that took place in Austin, Texas on Friday, December 6th of 1991. This case was this case is because it has not been solved. It's been like a saga, though it's gone on for over 3 decades at this point. This case involves the murder of 4 teenage girls: Amy Ayers, who was 13, Eliza Thomas, 17, Jennifer Harbison, 17, and her sister, Sarah Harbison, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, who was 15. Eliza and Jennifer worked at the I Can't Believe It's yogurt shop off of Anderson Lane in Northwest Austin. So they were there working that night, closing up the shop. Jennifer's sister Sarah and her friend Amy were getting a ride home, so they happened to be there, but they didn't work there or anything. It was just Jennifer and Eliza that worked there. Shortly before midnight on December 6th of 91, a police officer, an on-duty police officer, drove by, reported seeing a fire coming from the strip mall, from the I Can't Believe It's yogurt location because it's like a little strip mall that it's in. Reported that there was a fire there. Fire department comes, puts out the fire, and then realizes they have 4 dead bodies in the shop. 3 of them, well, they all 4 had execution-style gunshot wounds to the back of the head. One of them, though, Amy Ayers, was found a little ways away from the rest of the girls. 2 shots, like the first one didn't make it all of the way. Didn't take her all the way out. It also appears that maybe she crawled away from the other. It's just gross and tragic all the way around. This entire thing is just absolutely horrifying. So I think there was also sexual assault of at least one of the girls, though I have also read that there were 2. Like, actually it's 2, but that's not totally verified. I'm not 100% sure about that, but at least one of them. And all of this crime scene is, contaminated by the water, and the bodies are burned, it's just a mess. Is there anything you want to add before I go into, because this is like a saga? It's
a saga. No, I think that kind of gives the summary, kind of the baseline of what, to go into the charts and kind of see what's going on.
Well, there is just a little bit more I want to add before we get to the charts, because beyond that night, there are 4. Okay, the initial investigation had a large number of people of interest. Especially though at the time it was a 15-year-old caught with a .22 caliber gun at North Cross Mall a few days after the killings. So originally he and 3 of his friends were they were people of interest, but they were then eliminated as being people of interest. They were all under 17 at the time. Then years later, they were re-looked at, and these are Robert Springsteen, Michael Scott, Maurice Pierce, and Forrest Wellborn. APD, they fucked this case up. They did a whole bunch of real fucked up shit with this case. I have no problem saying it. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Forcing confessions if you hold a fucking gun to somebody's head in an interrogation, they're going to say whatever it is you want them to say. And that's exactly what one of these pieces of shit police officers did to I'm sorry. Look, and
that's terrible. And you see that in cases all around the country where that happens.
Yeah. And it's not like I dislike law enforcement, but I definitely dislike law enforcement like that. yeah, so these two, Springsteen and Scott, they confessed. That's the only reason why they ended up, like, there was no like forensic evidence. There was DNA at the time. DNA inside of one of the girls. At the time, I don't think they could really check it. Years later, they're able to do more, technology advances, science advances. They find that the DNA doesn't match any of the guys. Meanwhile, Springsteen and Scott are in prison. Scott, I believe, got life imprisonment. Springsteen originally was sentenced to death, and it was commuted to life in prison. But they find this DNA doesn't match any of them. The charges against Wellborn were dropped. And I'm really not sure what Pierce got here. He got something. I do know that he has passed. He was killed, or something happened to him in 2010. So, but how this part ends is both Scott and Springsteen were freed from prison in 2009, and their convictions were overturned. And all charges were dismissed in October of 2009. So nobody still knows who actually did this.
You would think they could run that DNA through like Ancestry. Like they've done other cases where they find relatives or at least the family it matches.
Yes. And there was something that they found. And I can't remember exactly. It was somewhat recent. They found more like things with, I probably sound really stupid, things within the DNA.
We're astrologers, not scientists.
They found more things, more markers, more something that would help them like nail down who it was, but it's still not enough to actually be able to figure out who it is. More like they can use it to eliminate who it's
I see.
or something. There's something about that. And like I said, I'm not 100% sure if I have that.
I think I follow. I think I know what you're saying though. Yeah. It's like, it's not enough to identify, but it's enough to rule out.
Yes,
Like
that's my understanding of it. Yeah. So this is where we are almost 33 years later. Still don't know who the fuck did this. Or who did this, what people did this.
That's terrible, terrible, terrible for their families. I just hate that.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I do too. Cause yeah. Should we look at the chart?
Yes.
Sorry, that was really long. Everybody listening to this, that was a really long-winded thing, but this one just isn't one that you can talk about shortly. And
yeah, there's so much information. I thought you did a really great job of getting that summary, by the way. That was awesome.
Good. I'm glad it wasn't too rambly and long. And
not at all.
Okay, so we only have one chart for this. Very active chart though. I think there's a lot going on here. We do not know what time it just says shortly before midnight. Everywhere says that. Like, so I put it for 11:45.
Yeah. Things about right, it from what I'm seeing right off the bat, the chart makes sense because you have the Virgo ascendant ruled by that Mercury in Sagittarius. So Mercury's in a detriment. So we know the victims are badly placed. So it makes sense,
I'd also it's also interesting about the we've got, okay, don't pay attention to the galactic center here. I just always have that pulled. But we have four things. All right, we've got the sun, Mercury, the moon, and the North Node in the fourth house. There is something about that feels like that is indicating all four of the girls.
Yeah.
The four of them. I know that sometimes we've seen that before in charts where it's like
we see it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, where there's different planetary or planets or markers that equal the number of victims a lot of times, like a stellium. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I feel like that is what we are quite literally seeing here among, obviously there's more going on there than just that, but just the literal kind of translation of it.
Man, that perpetrator, because we're looking at the seventh house in Pisces. So traditionally ruled by Jupiter and Virgo, which Jupiter is in a detriment, but
Is
in the first house of the victims, like on their turf.
up their ass, yeah.
There's something interesting about Virgo here, though, them being in Virgo, which is like day-to-day
Mhm.
service.
Mhm.
Um, is this someone who frequented the restaurant,
That's
or had been there before?
that's what I think. And also, we were talking about this beforehand. I feel like with that day-to-day thing you just brought up, and
Mhm.
with the chart ruler being retrograde,
Yeah.
I feel like APD, in their fucking case files, they have one of the perpetrators of this in their case files, whether that's from a statement, a credit card. I mean, you'd have to be real stupid to use your credit card and then go commit a murder. But I don't know. And I'll say this, I do think there are two.
Oh, isn't that how they knew what time this was? Didn't they have a receipt, or last time the register was closed out or rang someone? I'm just now remembering this. I don't know, but
They did do something with the credit card this time, except for when the cop
oh,
called.
that's when he actually thought. Okay, yeah.
But yeah, there is something, they did do something with the receipts, and people were talking a lot about how there was like two guys that were in there at the end of the night, um acting fucking weird. I don't know if it's if it's those two or not. Like I don't know. It's possible. But I
I'm gonna
just
tell you something though. They seen them before. They either knew these, not knew them, but recognized that either these are restaurant patrons or had been there before, because they're in mutual reception. The
yes.
Jupiter and Mercury. There's like a recognition between each other.
And we also have that 11th house ruler in the fourth that feels kind of familiar too.
Yeah.
There is a familiar, yes. So I do think that they definitely knew them. Now this is, I've seen theories. There are a lot of theories about this online, and we're not gonna go into all of them just because there's so many. But one of them is that this was a drifter, or these were drifters that did this. I'm not sure that I can go with that, because it does seem like they are familiar to the.
I gotta tell you though, like, just a little side story, sidebar. I worked at a coffee shop when I was a teenager, and there were people. I can think of two people right now. They were working in the area. They were from out of town, so they didn't live there, but they were in the area for like a month or two and came to that coffee shop every day.
Okay,
And so we kind of not knew each other, but like like, oh, these guys, oh, and they would tell me what was going on. And then they, after a couple months, went back home. So I think a situation like that could occur still.
no, I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. I was thinking more like when people are talking about the drifters, I was thinking more like somebody who like literally is just driving down I-35 for a couple of, you know what I mean?
Oh, I see. Yeah, just yeah.
But in the case of like what you're, yeah, I could see how that could, yeah, that would, I could see that. I could see
Hmm.
that. But they
Yeah.
definitely like were familiar to these girls. I definitely think they were.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah.
Speaking of that, since you mentioned, there are some fixed stuff. Shit, my book is falling apart. Like, look, it's like,
That's good. You've been using it. I need
like
to use mine more. It's intact.
it like totally like, oh, what the hell? Okay. Um, there are some fixed stars. There is one. Okay, there's one at 27, or sorry, not 27, 7 degrees, 27 minutes of Virgo. We've got the ascendant at 7 degrees, 28 minutes of Virgo. Right there. Um, so this one means prospectors of gold and silver, or those who are ministers of money, burning to death in one's own house.
Oh my gosh.
Quite literally. Yeah.
And
Very,
there's one right at 17 Sag as well, which is the victim's planet here. And it's wastefulness and lost energy, perverted moral success, and evil deeds.
Hmm. Yes. Which is very, I feel like that, while that is like representative of them, it is kind of like somebody had success in some little evil deed here, towards them. And even the wastefulness and lost energy, I feel like that could even be indicative of law enforcement, right? With
Mm,
Gemini on the cusp of the 10th house going
yeah.
here. I do. I feel like they went off. They were so consumed with hanging somebody for this that they didn't even like give a shit really who it was.
It's a horrendous crime to have in your city.
It
It
is.
doesn't do anything to just nab it on someone who didn't do it, though. That's not, but they want to create that sense of safety, right? And
They do
security.
because Austin, and I know, Austin's one of these, and I think we even still see this to this day with like the Lady Bird Lake stuff.
I was gonna say, yeah, I remember us talking about this during the Lady Bird Lake episodes, which
We
is still happening, by the way.
People are still being
Showing
found.
up. Yes.
This city has a tendency of because and I'm not saying that Austin's unsafe. I do think Austin is pretty safe for big cities. I was actually looking it up. The population here, city limits wise, is like the 11th biggest in the country.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of people.
I've actually been looking at the crime map of Austin lately because I'm kind of, I'm sorry, everything I have today is like all these side stories, but it's like trying to compare where we want to live to where we live now. Is the crime better or worse? And so, but I was surprised that really there is crime in Austin. It's
Yeah.
more than I thought. I feel safe here, but
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's crime here. I think there's, I would imagine, less crime here than, I mean, I've always, Austin, I lived in Houston for a while. And I always felt safer. I've always felt safer in Austin than in Houston. Um, so we kind of have this, and I think for a long time we were so small. We were just like a smaller college town capital.
mm-hmm.
In the past 10, 15 years gotten a massive influx of people. Um, but I think we want to hold on to that safety. And I think that perception of safety or what's safe. And I think that this here was trying, like, they wanted to hang somebody for it to make it still seem as safe. They didn't, do you know what I mean?
I do. There is a lot of tourism here.
Yeah.
I don't know about 91, but I'm sure like South by Southwest, we have
Yeah.
ACL Fest. This is a capital. There's a lot of tourism. So I could see why, you definitely don't want to bring down revenue in a city.
Yeah. 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 Because something like this is like, it's, it's very horrifying. Like, I mean, it is. Yeah. So I think they did want to make it seem like they were doing something that the city could go back to being as safe as it was before these murders happened, but it's like they were just so one track about these particular boys who were just boys at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They missed other things that I really feel like are in their files. I
Yeah.
don't I don't know what I don't know what that looks like. I don't know who's running the case today. I don't know what that team looks like, if there's even anybody doing that, because it's a cold case. But hopefully, my hope is they have completely new people, and everybody that was working on this in 91 through when these boys, these two of the four boys went to prison. I hope they fucked off and they don't have anything to do with this, because they're just going to they're going to dirty the water.
Yeah. There is something interesting here going on in the third house, kind of jumping over to this. The third house is like neighborhood or, very local. It's interesting how we have the violent planets there in a forensic chart. Like Pluto and Mars. Just trying to pull out some hints here. What are we dealing with? We already know they know each other or familiar faces with mutual reception. And then we got, this is probably someone hanging out nearby. If they don't live here, they're staying nearby, right? Do you sense that?
Absolutely. Especially since we have both rulers
Mm-hmm.
in this. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like one, yeah. Even if they like you were saying, maybe they are somebody who doesn't live here, but they are here for this time, right? And then
Yeah. Um, and you kind of go back to those boys. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying someone young could not have been involved, but it's definitely not flashing like these are young kids who did something like this. We normally see like a Mercury in the seventh, or maybe the seventh ruled by a Mercury. You know, and so I don't know. I don't get the sense this would be a teenage active. It's such a horrific violent
it is
crime.
it is so and you know, okay, so I do think it's two. I mean, I definitely think that we're talking about two
We got
perpetrators.
a double-bodied sign there, right? Like it's
Yeah, we have a double bodied sign. And also, I mean, not only that, there were actually two guns, two weapons used, two
mm.
different sorts of, there was I think I wrote it down. There was a 22 caliber and why do I want to say a 380? I might be, I
So
might
that
be,
would indicate there's probably two people with guns. And you know, Pisces has two rulers, you know,
yes,
Jupiter and Neptune.
yes, exactly. So there are things here that do, I mean, and I mean, we have four victims. I mean, I mean, I know that some, like one person with a firearm could easily, well, I don't even know how easy that would be. You're talking about four people that you're trying to corral. I really feel like,
Contain
yeah, you'd have
while one's being assaulted. I'll put it just that way, you know, and
like
yeah,
have to have at least two people doing this.
I would think so.
Um, because somebody otherwise I feel like would have gotten away. Or I don't know. What do we think about the 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 perp here or perps?
Well, anytime you get like Jupiter involved, you know, I'm like, okay, Jupiter rules foreign countries or someone who's not local, you know, someone I would think at least out of state. Um, I'm not convinced they're Austinites or that they were living here permanently, or I just don't, it just feels like something out of place. Like, does that make sense? Like, I don't feel like this is their home.
It does. No, that does make sense. Um, there's also a fixed star right by that one, that Jupiter.
Oh, okay. At 13.
Um, yeah, there's one at yeah, there's it is at 13 degrees 25 minutes. So it's like 20 minutes away from the Jupiter in the
That's
chart.
pretty close. Yeah.
Good for voyages,
Ah.
gained by merchandise, redemption of captives, prophetic ability.
Yeah, that's another thing about Jupiter, oddly. But Jupiter can be like religious or the god, you know, there can be nutty people in religion. Not everybody's in religion's nutty, but I'm just saying that's kind of one other thing.
Mhm.
Is Jupiter representing, could someone have a double life here? You know?
Yeah, yeah, that's possible, absolutely possible. Especially with the, the Pisces, Pisces energy can be, I mean, though Pisces may not realize it's doing it, though I think it could be purposeful here since this is in Virgo. But Pisces energy is very like chameleon like,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
And then we
Hmm.
also have Neptune, the other ruler of that descendant, and it's conjunct down here in Capricorn at 1519 Capricorn, which is conjunct the it's exact. It's exact. Vega is at 1519. Luck in politics, artistic talent, fleeting fame, double dealing, generosity, and practicality. It's an incredibly beneficial fixed star.
Between like everything we're seeing here, it almost makes me think of who was it? Who was a serial killer in, was it Kansas?
Which one?
Um,
BTK.
Yes. Like, wasn't he like, quote, an upstanding citizen or like within a church and like the least suspecting person? I almost wonder if that's what's going on here. Or at least one of them, you know.
Prater was also kind of a bitch, though, from what I've read. He was kind of a bitch. He'd run around bitching about everybody's animals and shit.
Oh, okay. He was okay.
Side story, I actually went me and my mom and my brother and my sister actually went and like went to where he lived and which
did the tour
right around which I mean it wasn't, we just kind of went on our own and like saw where he'd like sit up in a tree and do his bullshit. And yeah, sorry, that's a whole other story though. But yeah, it could be something like him, like Raider.
Yeah. I don't know, just a theory. But you know, with Neptune in the fifth house, that also brings in a couple of other things going on here. Is this someone on drugs? Because you can get to fifth house activity with any type of substance or, you know, recreational stuff.
Somebody that
or is, you know, fifth house also is you know, when you like someone or, you know, attraction too, you know, like a romantic thing. Is this someone who liked one of these girls?
Yeah, I do think I'll say this with, if you look at these four things in the fourth house, right? We only have one that's retrograde, the rest aren't. I really think one of them was the prime target for whatever reason. It was one of them.
I think so too.
And I don't know which one it is. My guess would be one of the two that were, or there's only one that's been confirmed as being sexually assaulted, but there was supposedly another one that was. So I'm gonna assume it was one of the two of them. But you know what's weird about that? What's weird about that, my understanding, and I actually have, and I'm kind of being vague here about who it is because I've actually seen it listed as different people, as different girls, but oftentimes it's not the two that worked there. Which is interesting.
That's very interesting.
Because you would think, right, that because this happened at their place of work, that one of, like, logic would dictate that it would be one of them. But I more often than not, you read about the two younger girls. One of them being,
right.
Which is, I've always thought that was interesting, but definitely definitely one of them was, I think, the target.
I could see. Yeah, that's interesting. Probably likely. And I can't stop seeing that Venus in Scorpio. A lot of like detrimental planets in this chart, right? But like in the second house, I can't remember, was there money missing or could they tell?
No, this did not appear to be robbery motivated, it did not appear to be. That Venus, oh, look, it's not a Venus and Scorpio thing in general, but in this chart, it's fucking gross. It grosses me.
It is. It is. I was hoping money was missing or something because I'm like, oh, but yeah. This is that to me screams obsession.
Yeah. And if there was, I'll throw this out there. We've got this as a conjunct the Shapley attractor, meaning it's like a massive scale. Massive, massive scale.
Like amplified, huh?
Like multiple shots of steroids.
Yikes.
Yeah, that Venus is, I'm not talking shit about people with Venus and Scorpio in a natal chart, but in this chart, it grosses me out. Like, I think it's gross.
Yeah. Poof.
And the other thing, like obsession with the ruler of one of the rulers of, it makes me think they enjoy, like this was enjoyed.
Yeah.
If there were drugs involved, or there could have been, absolutely possible.
I mean, you find that in some crimes where I even hate saying it, but like, with with the perpetrator, that there's some enjoyment in what they're doing. And
That's
yeah.
what, yeah, that's what this, like, this, who, at least one of them enjoyed it, which is nasty to say or think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wish the victim ruler of Mercury was not retrograde.
What is it? Like for soul?
It concerns me, yeah, that it's retrograde, and then the luminary is at the bottom of the chart, like at the most bottom it can be.
Yeah.
But sometimes, and I wonder if this will be kind of one of these things where maybe a case isn't technically solved, but you know who did it, right? Or it comes out and it's kind of, no, if that makes sense, but
Does, like, maybe they're able, maybe more, because I mean they still have that DNA, and as science progresses, there could even be more markers they could pull out of it. Maybe they're able to identify more possibilities about who it could be. But yeah, they can't actually, it's not for some reason strong enough to actually be like,
or they're dead by the time there's justice.
that seems very, like, I mean, almost 33 years now. It is
Well, yeah, it's almost like that much time. There's definitely a chance of that. But I will say this: like Jupiter being, it's badly placed too. I mean, yeah, we're seeing like Vega and these sorts of things, but Jupiter being in Virgo is not well placed either. So I do wonder, did this person or persons, are they serving time for something else? So it's not the same thing as getting justice, but I do wonder
they're at least
if
off the,
something caught up to them in another way.
which, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not justice for the families, but if they do happen to be incarcerated somewhere else, at least they're not out doing this fucking shit to
Yeah.
anybody. Do we think this was that's another thing, another theory is that it wasn't whoever's first time.
Of committing a crime or a murder. I would not think in the manner that it was done that it would not be the first time. That seems kind of like a career criminal, or maybe not, but I mean, just that's what my brain tells me. As far as like what the astrology is saying, that could be another thing with the double-bodied sign and with a couple rulers could represent that. No, it's not the first time either, that there's been victims somewhere else, or
That's what yeah. I don't feel like this. I mean, okay, so like if there were multiple perpetrators, it's possible that it could have been like one of their first times, but I think there was at least one of them that this wasn't this wasn't like the only one they'd done.
yeah,
Or maybe not exactly like this, but they had committed some sort of something or
they've
another.
done something before. I think that's likely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Is there anything else that
I'll say one other thing is I can't stop staring at this third house. I know I already brought it up, but another thing I get from that, what crimes were committed nearby in the recent, like before this or right, probably not after, but right before? I can't stop seeing Pluto and Mars there. Something, I wonder if these people either, if there was like a robbery, burglary, or, whatever, what was their property crime? What, but I'm like, what happened in that area by that shop?
Like it could be linked to what happened.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know why that's just,
Seems
it's
possible.
like a neon sign in this chart for me.
What are there any that's one thing I didn't look at. Fixed stars near those.
Hmm. Yeah. Which
Uh
one are you taking? I'll take the other.
I'll see if there's anything by Mars. There is.
There's a 22-degree Scorpio. It's going to be about 45 minutes, no, about 50 minutes apart. Success followed by fall, suicide, insanity, accidents, success in war, politics, writing, problems in love, forgery, shipwreck, loss, earthquake. Dang.
Yeah,
Intense.
that is intense. And it's okay, well it's unfortunate for Saturn and Mars.
Hmm.
Guess Pluto being the higher octave, I could see how it of Mars, it could see how maybe it might be unfortunate for it too.
I mean, I'm sure police, I don't know. I would think police would, in a crime like that, like what happened in the area
I would hope so.
around this time, I would hope, but I wonder if that is that another clue, did they detain any of these people, right before? Sometimes you hear stories like that, or
Where they
do
had
they
a
question them?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. There is one at 5 degrees 36 minutes of Sagittarius that Mars is at 5 degrees 48. Passionate, blindly good-hearted, easily seduced, healer with herbs. Hmm.
So if we're thinking there's two people,
Mhm.
or that could give you some indication that there's a dominant and one who's kind of following along. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it could. The easily seduced.
I mean, I know these, Mars, Pluto, I know they're not ruling the seventh. I want to be clear if anyone's watching that, but there's just something about that being nearby. I feel like it's just another piece here that the chart's trying to show, possibly.
Oh yeah, I think yeah. That makes like total sense to me. Makes total sense. Mhm. And that Mars is like, I mean, it's in the third house. It's almost into the fourth though.
Hmm.
It's like what, 6 minutes from that?
Yeah. By horary rules, it would be considered the fourth.
Which would put the also Mars being the ruler of that eighth house. That feels kind of gross here.
Yeah. Hmm.
So your advice, not that APD is going to be like taking our advice, but like not that they're going to do that, but like advice you think maybe looking at crimes in the area.
Looking at the records. And it wouldn't be like, oh, someone reported their car window busted open and they took the checkbook. I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking who was questioned in something around this time with some either crime or police being called, um, something like that.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
reported, hey, there's a couple weird guys on our street, something like that. Like this is like, I think that's worth, looking into.
Yeah, I think it probably is. And just like going, and it's so hard in a case like this because there are so many years apart, right, from when it happened. But it's like they need to go back to like the beginning. And I don't even know how you really do. I mean, at this point that shopping center's still there, but it's like not, I mean, obviously it's not a yogurt shop anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has changed, but I don't really know how you go back to the beginning at this point, this far away. But that's like what feels like needs to happen. Like going,
Yeah.
like you said, like things that had happened in the area, go back through that.
What
Or
was ruled out really soon?
yeah.
Like go back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope they do that, or they're doing that, whoever's working on this now.
I hope so.
And I want to also say, I think the weirdness of this case, the shockingness of, because this is like the shocking, shockingness of, it was shocking. It is shocking. Also, the way that this kind of, I think, transformed, even though like Austin really was, I mean, we had Charles Whitman doing his bullshit on the UT Tower in 1969. So it's not like this was like safe, but this crime did seem to kind of transform the way people um perceive safety in the city. I think that
Mhm.
transformation locally is also seen in this Pluto as well,
Yeah.
in another way. But this moon conjunct the galactic center.
I was
Which
wondering if you're gonna bring that up. I saw that. I
it's
wanted to
like
hear your thoughts.
it's right on. I mean, it's like what, within like 12 minutes, it's very close. And
Mhm.
it does that transformation quality, right? Just thinking about the city of Austin in general, like, because this crime did, I mean, people did not feel as safe afterwards. They didn't, as they did before. It's kind of one of those things that happens in a place, and it's like it's never the same again. And that this particular these murders did that. Even though the city, it had issues before too. Uh,
Yeah, but there's something about young, because these were kids, let's
yeah,
face it, teenagers, like all of a sudden, oh, my kids aren't safe working till midnight, or, yeah, it does bring a lot of, I don't know what I want to say, caution and awareness, like, and yeah, it's scary.
it is, and I feel like that transformation, and even like spaghettification, if you will, of home. um, I feel like that's very, very much indicative of the moon conjunct the GC. And just how this has remained in public memory for as long as it has. Like, and I realize that it's like a horrifying thing to happen, but this one has really stuck out with people. Um,
Yeah.
if you've lived here any amount of time, even after this, you've heard of this. Um,
Yeah.
even so many years later.
My heart goes out to those families. That's just
Absolutely.
terrible.
Absolutely. My heart goes out to him too, because this is, I don't even want to imagine what.
I can't imagine 33 years going by and not having the answers. That's just sounds miserable and horrible. And
Sounds like torture.
exactly.
Yeah, it's really awful.
Let's hope it gets solved. And let's hope whoever's on this one goes back and, is maybe able to find some clues. Cause I think you're right. I think there's something there. Something in that file. I don't know.
They just
Physical.
they need new eyes on it. They need different
Yeah.
eyes. Like, they need to be like, everybody that worked this in 91 or through the 90s, fuck off. We don't want your help.
But you see that in like all these crime documentaries, like when these old cold cases get solved, it's usually some new, fresh detective coming in and like, all right. And that's what they do. They start from the beginning. They're like, let's start from the beginning and go through this with a fine tooth comb again. And that's how it happens. That's how it gets solved.
And that I think is the only way this one has a shot of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know that we are starting to run out of time. So thank you so much for coming and doing this with me. And I know
Thank
that
you for having me.
absolutely anytime. I love doing the forensic astrology stuff with you. Um,
Mutual.
for anybody that's watching this, if you have any thoughts about the charts, or you want to share anything about the case that you know of, whatever, we love hearing from you. So leave comments below. And Brandy, where can you be found?
I can be found at brandyburrowastrology.com and Brandy Burrow Tarot and Astrology on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And Ellie, let everyone know where you can be found as well.
Find me here on YouTube at Saturn Season Astrology, on Instagram at Saturn Season Astrology, and through my website, saturnseason.com. And I guess we'll see y'all later.